Today we'll do studies to learn more about the illustration style of Master Alphonse Mucha and integrate what we've learned into a pen and ink composition of our own. I first sketched rough thumbnails of the 1896 lithograph version of this piece called The Seasons to get an initial impression. From a pen and ink perspective, there are three things Alphonse Mucha achieves exceptionally well. His flowing, fluid compositions. Second is the ornamental yet economical line work. Third is the harmonious, decorative integration of it all. Let's get into it. So a thumbnail study is a quick and easy way to help capture what you first observe. We do notice more things by doodling out what we see rather than just analyzing the art. I'm immediately struck by the visual design. How these seductive poses flow in curves, swirls, and patterns that guide the viewer's eye in a controlled rhythm. Note how the anatomy of his ladies is simplified in graceful postures. For spring, see how her arm curves this way into the branch that arcs the opposite way? Her hair swoops around to the other side of her body, and here her dress is caught in a branch. It's like a bunch of S's in the composition. All these little things create lovely counterbalances for visual symmetry. With Summer, he's using opposing curves in her posture to fill the space and to describe the serene mood. So here, the tunic fabric is halfway in this barge, or whatever she's sitting on. Again, using a counterbalance of different elements to harmonize the composition. After doing only 2 doodles, we already gain a sense of how the master achieves flowing, fluid compositions. In the autumn sketch, my attention shifts to the tones and values. Although the color hues are muted, the darker tones frame the line of action. The line of action is the movement of the figure. There's tons of little details and side stories happening in this illustration, like the interweaving of botanicals and these bunched fabrics, snagged dresses that accidentally reveal more of the young maiden's body parts, which I assume would have been provocative in 1896. But the way he arranged the values and how he uses line weight strategically is what I call ornamental yet economical line work. A lot is going on, yet our attention is pulled to the figure. That's where our eye goes first. Same with winter. See, even though these organic shapes are in front of the figure, we almost don't register them. Or how about these little birds on the branch and the one in our hand even? Because of the tones and line weight differences, the main attraction is still the lady in the bold outline. These sketches helped to understand how the master achieves a harmonious decorative integration of his compositions. The thumbnail exercise was good for getting our initial impressions of what stood out about the master's approach and style. Next, we practice the 3 things we noticed by doing a more detailed drawing. We'll crop a section of this illustration called The Rose as a mini study. After converting it to grayscale, I went ahead and roughed out the edges of the main shapes for the underdrawing in my Moleskine sketchbook. While doing the pencil drawing, I'm focused on how the master does hair as a visual design with the other motifs and textured patterns. While sketching those elements around the lady, I'm interested in how the master used negative space and what that flow is suggesting. I can already see while doing the underdrawing that the master assigns volume to the shapes with line direction, which is good because that means his illustrations don't actually need color. The line direction, along with line weights, and how he structures the compositions, such as that negative space, will create the illusion of depth and dimension without the use of shading. He's not relying on color or value gradients to achieve this stunning dimensionality. You can see at this stage of the line work how it's reminiscent of Mobius. I quite like it. I'm mindful to keep the outline light on this first pass, I didn't draw an exact copy, so I'm improvising a lot, especially with the background, but monitoring for detail overload. Mucha often uses just enough line work to suggest form, then surrounds it with pattern or open space. Here I'm using a circular shape to simulate the pattern. This is where the gray marker can mimic some of the background motifs. All it is a gray circle behind the lady. For the clusters of hair, it reads like bold outlines, but I think that's intended as a deeper tone for contrast and not part of the outline design. So I used a mid-weight fine liner there. Then I go in on a second pass with my thickest pen for the boldest outlines. Note that the bold follows the outer silhouette of the figure and her hair, not the face or hands. This showcases how Mucha's figures are not anatomy portraits. They're stylized, idolized forms. This gives us permission to prioritize design flow and have fun with it. In that spirit, for the final study, I thought it would be fun to reference vintage photos and integrate decorative elements inspired by what we've reviewed so far about the master's approach. I established the figure first, aiming to reach that serene, elegant, simplified anatomy in a graceful posture, which took several tries. I drew a few lines to indicate a dress. How fabric drapes the form seems to be an essential part of the design to create that idolized look, as we saw in our initial thumbnails. I also noticed none of these ladies have ears, which is curious. Then I layered the decorative elements, starting with her flowery hairpiece, then continued to think of the composition as a fluid integration. I like birds and placing large botanicals in the extreme foreground, so I composed with that. The challenge here is knowing how much detail to put in without losing sight of the overall harmony, trying to keep it fluid and clean at the same time. This time I opted for a dip pen and India ink. The supplies are linked in the description below, along with other helpful resources like books and the companion blog post for this video. This part was pretty straightforward and uneventful. Mucha inks all the contour lines without any fancy tricks, and everything is the same line weight except for the main subject and the border, which I saved for last. I repeated the circular gray wash in the background to simulate a motif, but otherwise the ink was easy because of the planning that went before that. Doing the thumbnails helped flush out possible compositions, aiming for flow and fluidity. The mini study was practice for how to draw the detailed ornaments and balance those with a harmonious line work. Therefore, the final study tied it all together, integrating our own design influenced by the master's decorative style and approach. Thank you for suggesting Alphonse Mucha to be featured for a master study. I hope you found fresh ideas from watching this video. If you did, I'd appreciate you take a moment to give it a like, subscribe for more, and I wish you the best with your art projects. Bye!